Hey everyone, we're going to take a look at two of the hottest new home planetariums on the market, the Matataki and the FX. I've done individual reviews of these. You can go check those out separately, but let's get straight into it in terms of the design. The Matataki looks very similar to the Flux and the Homestar original, but as you can hear, it's a lot more clicky. The FX has this quite cool style. It's a cross between a spaceship and a Star Wars droid, and that's also got a rotatable top, so you can aim these at the ceiling or maybe on a wall. Now let's take a look at the controls, as this is where we see the main differences. So there's more controls on the Matataki, and that's because it offers music, soundscape and shooting stars, none of which the FX have. You want to go check out my Matataki review to hear the music and the soundscapes. By soundscapes I mean like babbling brook type noises. But don't count the FX out just yet, let's continue the tour. So we have discs on both. They both operate on this tray basis, but the discs in the FX can't be removed, whereas the Sega Homestar range already have quite a few discs available and they can be swapped out. So if you've already got this, that's quite a big benefit, and there's no way to swap these over. You can't use one set of discs in the other unit. But what do they actually look like? Well, I quite like the Matataki. It can do up to 60,000 stars, and you can see there's quite a lot of black space there, and it's quite a nice soft projection. Okay, this has I think it's a 3-watt LED, and therefore it's quite nice and soft, and you can see the galaxy. You can swap this out for different types of discs, but this is essentially what you're going to get. I will say though that it is a little bit noisy if you have this rotation on. There's this little background hum as it rotates. It's not too loud, but it's not silent either. Now let's turn on the FX and you'll see that it is a brighter unit. It also has a lot more stars. So we're talking 3.1 million stars. So even though you're looking up and it's a similar kind of projection in terms of it's the Milky Way, the FX just has so much more to it. They both have a twinkle star function. You have to let your eyes get used to the room being really dark first, and then you can start to see them very gently twinkling. So now let's take a look at the FX on its own. And it's worth noting that this does have a rotation feature, and it's a lot quieter. This is actually one of the quietest projectors I've used, so I would definitely recommend the FX if you want something that runs almost silently. Now let's take a look at them side by side, because obviously we've seen them overlapping, but this is the difference. You can see there's a lot more black in the Matataki, and I think some people will prefer that. That feels like you're looking up at space, whereas if you're out under a sky where there's no light pollution, the FX is perhaps a little bit more realistic. You would actually see a lot more if you could just look up at the night sky without any light pollution. So which do you prefer? I would love to know down below. Do you prefer the millions of stars, or do you prefer it dialed back so that you just see some stars and then a lot of darkness? So let's come back to the question, which should you buy? Well, that's going to depend on your own personal preferences. Let's take a look at the specs. So you've got the music, soundscape and shooting star on the Matataki. We covered those earlier. The cost, there is a difference in cost, but not too much. If you get the FX on its own, it's quite a bit less, but if you get it as part of a bundle pack, then it does cost almost the same as the Matataki. If you're concerned about the number of discs, well, the Sega Homestar brand's been around for a while. They've got over 20 discs available. If you want the most stars, it's got to be the FX. If you want silent operation, it's got to be the FX. And of course, if you want it so it doesn't have to be plugged in, that it can be powered by battery, then it also has to be the FX. Personally, if I was choosing one or the other, I think I would go more for the FX. Although I like that Sega have put in these little extras, they haven't addressed the main issue that I have, which is the very slight background noise. I prefer it to run silently, and overall my personal preference is the FX star projection. For me is a little bit better. I prefer the more stars, it looking like I'm under a very clear sky, rather than one that's looking a little bit empty and lots of dark spots. You'll find affiliate links to both of these products below. Love to know what you think. Let me know in the comments.